just for context, we were doing revenues of around £300 a day online. Prior to that event, everything was handmade. After the event, we turned the website back online, and in the first half an hour of the website being live, we sold £30,000 in product. As a youngster, I was, like, to be honest, I was very quiet. I just sort of got on with it. I didn't particularly enjoy school, but I wasn't a nuisance. I wasn't like a naughty kid or whatever. I sort of did it because I had to. But because in my GCSEs I didn't get the best grades, my mum essentially marched me back to school and just says, right, you are gonna work incredibly hard and you're gonna get good grades now. And she really sort of like fought for me, because the school originally didn't actually want me to come back. And she essentially persuaded them to take me back on for another couple of years, which was brilliant. I was let back into school under the agreement that I did essentially the subjects that were given to me. I did business studies, which I did okay at, and IT, which was like a huge pivotal moment for me. It was how well can I develop websites or, build different things. And for me, that was completely game-changing. So I absolutely fell in love with that, and I did, incredibly well, which was a brilliant moment for me because I hadn't particularly done well in academia before that.
So you start university and you're doing business. What was university life like for you?
University life for me was essentially it was very functional. I went into Aston in the day. I'd do my lectures. I'd normally finish those lectures about 4 or 5 o'clock. I'd then go from there to Pizza Hut and I'd do my shift, which would normally be from 5 till 10, half 10 by the time you've cleaned up. I had massive freedom because if I was in the restaurant, I could essentially I'd get a free pizza every shift, which was brilliant. I would be pot washing if I was in the restaurant, and if I wasn't, I'd be out obviously delivering the pizza. In which case, I could mess around on my phone in between, in between deliveries. I could read stuff, or by the time I'd started Gymshark, I could respond to customer queries in between my deliveries, which was perfect for me.
So let's now talk about starting Gymshark and how that came about.
Going back to 2011, 2012, or even before that, when I was sort of growing up massively into bodybuilding, everything that you was looking at was over the pond. We were looking at Americans. For the most part, we were watching American YouTubers. Body Power, just conveniently enough, was 20 minutes away from where I lived. So it was at the Birmingham NEC, which was just a huge strike of luck for me. But it was that one time a year when you could go in and these people, the lifters, the fitness, I guess, stars would come into Birmingham for one weekend a year, and you could physically see them, talk to them, meet them, do like all of that, and that was just something I'd never experienced before. In 2011, I think I was visiting the expo just as a bit of a fan. After the 2012 event, I went home and I was chatting to my mum and my nan, who know how to sew and so on. And it was that made me think, right, I'm going to buy a sewing machine and a screen printer at the time and sort of make the product myself. And to be honest, the Gymshark website was because I'd never made a website in fitness that would transact, so it wouldn't sell things. So it was more of a test, almost like previously I would test myself, could I make an app that would do this? And then I wanted to do it. Could I create an iPhone app that would do that? And then I managed to do it. Then it was all these different things, and this was just me making a website that would transact. And I just had this sort of innate gut feeling that we needed to be at this event. I had no idea how much it costed, what it would look like, what we would do, how we would have enough product to sell. I just wanted to be there. So I essentially walked up to the show organising. They had like a small booth near the entry. And I just said, next year, I just would like a stand here. Whatever your cheapest stand is, I want this stand. And I'll never forget, it was £3,000. I didn't have £3,000 at the time. Like, I'd never seen £3,000. So it was a bit of a leap to sort of say, or I guess agree to have that. But it was definitely one of the best decisions I've ever made. So because everything was handmade, we turned the website off a few days before the event, so no one could get their hands on the product. So I think a lot of people that were getting on the website probably couldn't get their hands on it. So anyone local or even in the UK was going to make their way to the event. So we'd sort of accidentally created scarcity. We also kept the website off for that weekend. We launched a product for the event, so we took the product there and we launched it at the event, which also wasn't available online. Teased that on Facebook, because at the time that was the only sort of social platform that we had, as well as YouTube. And we brought our heroes to the event, people that we idolised and had followed for years, and those people were YouTubers. or now as people call them, influencers. I'm sort of there unloading stuff out of the van. You're probably 30 yards away from the lorry loader to the loading bay to the stand. And as I'm walking over to the stand with the box, I'm seeing a flood, like hundreds and hundreds of people flooding straight from the NEC entrances to the Gymshark stand. And at first in that moment, you think this can't actually be true. I can't believe that this is actually going on. Are they going to go past the stand? I was thinking of every sort of reason as to why this is nothing to do with us. But literally floods of people were there to see Gymshark. The brand sort of inadvertently went viral whilst having this sort of scarcity and demand. All of that combined with the fact that no one else was making product for the true lifter, the bodybuilder. After the event, we was lay on the floor in the stand, completely just lay, because we were absolutely knackered, hadn't slept all that weekend, we just worked non-stop. And like someone sort of wandered over from a big brand, and they just said, like, how the hell did you do that? And the only thing that we could say back to them was, I've got no idea. Honestly, I was just shell-shocked. Just for context, we were doing revenues of around £300 a day online. Prior to that event, everything was handmade. After that event, we completely sold out of everything at the event. I was sat in my parents' living room, and it was like, I don't know, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning that I actually flicked the website back on. And in the first half an hour of the website being live, we sold £30,000 in product. So I'm sat in the pitch black downstairs in the living room, just having had this insane sort of half an hour sales period. I'd been scrambling at my laptop to turn the stock off, because at the time every single product was set to infinite stock because there was never any chance of us selling out of it. So to go from 300 quid a day to £30,000 in half an hour, everything had sold out. It was absolutely mind-blowing. It was like living a dream. I had never experienced anything like it, and there was never a point where I thought it would ever happen. I quit Pizza Hut. I think it was shortly after that. I remember it was around the period where we broke a 250,000 in revenue. Which was obviously a momentous occasion. It was brilliant. And Pizza Hut was brilliant for me because, one, it was a job I enjoyed. I learnt a lot doing it, and I had the flexibility to do Gymshark in between deliveries. But not only that, the money that I earned from Pizza Hut allowed me to live. And it meant that every penny that Gymshark made would be reinvested into the business for the first few years of its life. And that was absolutely brilliant, and it helped the business grow so much. So yeah, it was a big leap, because at the same time as leaving Pizza Hut, I left university. And albeit that didn't actually make a massive difference to me financially, emotionally that was an interesting decision, because I'd worked so hard to get there. Like I said, I was not and am not naturally an academic person, or I don't think I am. I'd given everything to get into university, and ultimately I did it because I wanted to make my parents proud, because they'd worked so hard for me. However, the second I told them that I'd made the decision, and I said, this is the decision and I'm going with it, there was not one time ever they brought it up again. After I'd made the decision, they completely and utterly backed me, and I think that made a massive difference as well.
Well, what would you say was the best decision you made in the early days of the company?
So when you start a business, you have to have a very, very clear vision about where you want the business to be. And the likelihood is that will be somewhere where people won't have seen or been before. So I'd characterise my role at Gymshark at the time as I had to grab the business by the scruff of the neck and drag it to where I thought was right, regardless of what anyone would say. And there were so many people that would say, you want to get your product into different retail stores, you need to do this or you need to do that. And I had to be the person that would say, no, this is my vision and we're going to carry it there by hook or by crook. Now, as soon as then the business gets to a certain stage, arrogance and I guess that sort of dragging the business mentality just isn't the right thing to do, because you have to then surround yourself with brilliant people that are better than you, that can help grow the individual aspects of the business in a scalable way. That was incredibly, incredibly difficult for me. I had to learn to trust people, which was equally difficult because the business was my absolute baby. I'd been involved in every single facet of it, and all of a sudden I had to realise that I can't be involved in every single facet of it, and I had to learn to build great teams.
What has been your single proudest moment?
So when Gymshark started, I was your typical Pizza Hut, typical 19, 18-year-old lad. I was working at Pizza. I was on the £4.90, I think it was, an hour. And fast forward to today, there's 550 staff. We've got offices in London, in the Midlands, which we're building a large campus there. We've got offices in Hong Kong, in Mauritius, in Denver, Colorado. This calendar year, we'll have sold over $500 million worth of product, which is, again, crazy. And just to be clear as well, $500 million worth of product only through our website. This isn't like we have hundreds of stores around the world. And that's a mind-blowing level to get to.
So the company's now been valued at over £1 billion. When that moment happened, how did you feel?
It really hit me when I was driving home, what we'd achieved. There was this just moment of it sort of hit me as to what we'd achieved. And it didn't last long, to be honest, because the second I started thinking about, like, sentimentally about what we've achieved, and my mind had jumped back to the first screen print, the sewing, the events, the risks, the moments of the highs and the lows. It all just hit me in that moment. And it was it was an amazing feeling. And I had that moment of just, I guess, joy and excitement. That deal had been done in a way where we were always looking forward as to what we could be and go on to be, which you're starting to see now. Building a business, valued at over $1 billion was just something I never thought that we would do. Several years ago, I was far more arrogant, far more pig-headed. I didn't listen to other people in the way that I would now. I didn't take things on board, partly because I was just more immature, but partly because it's what I felt and was probably right for the business at the time. Whereas now, I'd say I listen a lot more, and I've managed to, I guess, develop myself throughout the years.
What advice would you give to the next Ben Francis?
It's so easy to look at Gymshark in isolation, at this thing that blew up and did incredibly well, but people forget about the 7 websites and the 4 apps that were produced beforehand, which failed miserably. And the reason Gymshark can exist and has done what it's done today is because of those prior failures. Failures will allow you to succeed, so I think people need to reframe their think about failures and just give it a go. Go all in on something and see what happens. And do you know what? If it doesn't go well, then that's cool. You can always try something new.
I walked directly from the stage to this. I remember sitting on this sofa in, like, the reception area and just started getting this, like, these palpitations. I remember saying to myself, like, oh, this is it. This is where you die.